Hello, my name is François Guesnet and I'm a professor in modern Jewish history. And I would like to briefly outline the course Religion, State, Society in a Modern European History. This is a, broadly speaking, chronological course, a one-term course, 10 classes, which obviously will not deal with all issues in connection with religion, state, society as a whole, but will shed light on a number of crucial stepping stones and issues one may learn more about. We start with the Protestant Reformation and investigate what this meant for the relationship of religious affiliation and political organization. We then look at the establishment of religious communities in general. A good example is the United Kingdom, where the head of state is also the head of the Church of England. We'll then look into the impact of the Enlightenment and the sense of what was called the disenchantment of the world, secularization. We'll then think about the fact that most religions or religious communities are transnational entities, so transgressing borders. How does this affect the relationship of members of these communities to the state, to society? The question of how diversity in the religious sphere, religious diversity is accommodated in mostly Western societies will be the topic of another class. We will look at what is called by legal specialists minority legal orders, so religious communities which have their own legal traditions and how this relates to existing legislation. We'll also look at the emergence of very radical religious movements. We'll look at how we can define fundamentalist movements and look at a couple of chapters of really deep societal and political transformation and to which degree religion or religious belief had to do with that. We'll look, for example, at the theology of liberation, or we will look at one Pope, John Paul II, who really reconfigurated policies and the state and societies in Eastern Europe in the especially 1980s and also 1990s. We'll then look at the Arab Spring as a phenomenon of profound challenge to existing orders and the question how religious concepts, ideas impacted on this process. Finally, we look at one of the most fascinating chapters in this long history of the relationship between religion, state, and society by looking at the emergence of the Islamic State and ask how did this come about and how this very radical extremist movement, why this extremist movement defined itself as a state, as an Islamic state, and what we learn from that about the way one can define a state or a community or a polity. Finally, we will look at the impact of, because this is obviously dominating this coming academic year, we'll look at the relationship between religious congregations and COVID-19. Religious congregations have been often super spreader events for epidemiological reasons, not for religious reasons. And we will investigate the response of religious communities and how this fits into certain ideas about the impact of crisis on religious attitudes. So that's basically the program. The assessment consists of an essay and slide presentations and one slide presentation, sorry, and a number of small quizzes, not too difficult to manage, I believe. Because we do this course remotely, I will very significantly expand my office hours in order to allow us to meet in person to the degree to which this is possible according to the regulations. In case you have any questions, there will be a Q&A in a week, in the during induction week. And I hope you will tune in order to ask your questions about this course. But you always obviously can also just drop me an email. You have to look up my funny name in the Department for Hebrew and Jewish Studies. And I'm looking forward to meet you remotely and in person. I wish you a good start to the academic year and a successful academic year.